Hey everyone, we're all anticipating the big debate between President Biden and President Donald Trump. I know I am. I'm just wondering how rigged this debate is going to be. I mean, I don't know. Can I trust CNN? Absolutely not. And let's just start out with what's going to happen? You saw what happened for those of you who didn't, we're going to play that clip for you later on in the show. We have Mercedes Schlapp with us of CPAC and Newsmax here, but we're going to play the clip of Caroline Leavitt, literally getting shut down by CNN when they ask her a question and she responds. And obviously she talks about Jake Tapper. And that was it. I mean, they basically shut her down and took her off the air. This is absolute insanity. What's happening in our country. And we haven't learned a thing, I don't think. And I think that's why so many Americans are so afraid of this upcoming election, right? I talk to people all the time. They're like, oh God, there's no way Biden can win again. But what if he does? And I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And let's talk a little bit about Jake Tapper really quick before I just move on to the other hot topics we're going to be discussing in today's The Sarah Carter Show. Let's talk about Jake Tapper because in 2017, I want you to remember this. It was Jake Tapper that got the leaked information from none other than Clapper, who was head of the National Security Administration. He leaked the information to Jake Tapper that President Trump had been briefed by James Clapper on the fake dossier. It was the only way. Clapper and John Brennan, former head of the CIA, Clapper, who was head of the National Security Administration. It was the only way, and James Comey with the FBI could get that fake, ridiculous, one-sourced document that literally sent the United States on a completely different trajectory and put President Trump's life at risk. It was the only way they could get it in the news. And how did they do that? They went to Jake Tapper, their friend. This is the guy who's going to moderate the debate. Why did President Trump? I don't know. I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know what's happening when it comes to these high-level decisions. But why is CNN doing this? Why is this CNN right now? It's like, well, we got to give some to CNN, then give it to Fox News, then give it to so-and-so, then give it to so-and-so. I would just eliminate CNN from my lexicon. They are not objective. They want President Trump to go down. And speaking of the FBI, and I have so many questions for Mercy on this, we right now have an exclusive from America First Legal. I don't know if you have seen this, but America First Legal that reveals that the FBI expanded its spying powers when they were in Mar-a-Lago to target any Trump supporters, any supporters of President Trump. Just so you know how dangerous this expansion of powers is in the United States and how it violates our Constitution, the internal documents that were taken by and given to Stephen Miller through the FOIA request from Biden's DHS shows their plans to target Trump supporters. That's us, anybody who supports MAGA, anybody who supports President Trump, me included, as domestic extremists. The Brennan Clapper Intel Group, I don't even know why they still have security clearances, discussed how, quote unquote, and I'm reading this, most of the domestic terrorism threat now comes from supporters of the former president. I want you to think about that. Think about what that means in America. Did I just wake up in communist China? Am I in Stalin's Russia? Where am I? In the Soviet Union? What is going on here? What kind of bizarre, twisted government do we have where we have a shadow government that's literally operating to target us as Americans. And we're going to talk about that with Mercedes Schlapp. But first, My Pillow folks, Mike Lindell, I'm sure he's on the target list, but they're not going to take away his pillow. No, and they're not going to take away my pillow either. And he did this company for you, for the American people. And he did it with the dedication of a team that cared about American products. And now they've expanded their offerings to include hundreds of products, folks, and to spread the word that they will not be part of this cancel culture. They are hosting a $25 extravaganza, and it's going on now. Here's the current offer. Use promo code Carter. Remember this, CARTER at mypillow.com to get the sale price and free shipping on any order over $75. Here are some of the products available for only $25. 2-pack My Pillows, My Pillow sandals, luxurious 6-pack towel sets, the brand new 4-pack dish towels, small dog beds, beach towels. Other savings with promo code Carter are the Giza Dream bed sheets. You'll get those right now, queen size, only $59.98 with promo code. With the promo code Carter, CARTER, 60% off my slippers, mattress toppers as low as $99.99. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-685-7221 today to get in on the $25 extravaganza today. Be sure to use code Carter to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. Call 1-800-685-7221 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Again, mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Okay, here she is, Mercedes Schlapp. She's the host of CPAC Now America Uncancelled, a Newsmax contributor, former White House strategic senior advisor, and my very, very good friend who I can count on anytime for a room when I'm in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for being on the show, Mercy.
You can relate when I'm running around trying to move one child to the next place. You can totally relate. So yes, it is great to be on your podcast. We are so appreciative of everything that you do for the country and bringing awareness to so many issues, but also for CPAC. You're part of the CPAC core family. So you travel with us everywhere, and it has just been an incredible experience to watch CPAC just expand internationally.
Oh, it has. CPAC has been my family when I'm away from home. Every time you ask me to attend an event, I'm so happy and excited to be there. I loved going to CPAC Hungary with you. I wish I could have made it this year, which would have been so exciting. We've been to CPAC Mexico, CPAC Japan, CPAC Korea. We can see that all across the world, there are people that are standing up to globalism, standing up to this bizarre new world that we are in, which is, I don't think 1984 could even come close to what we're seeing right now.
True.
It was like, this is not 1984 is light compared to what we're actually witnessing. Yeah. It's what we're witnessing is a change across the globe. And I think that's why it was so important for CPAC to go global. This isn't just about us struggling to try to keep our national identity, our sovereignty, and America, but we understand that the threat is a global threat. That if we don't have allies across the globe, right, we're not gonna survive.
It's not only a global threat, but it's communism. And we talk about this all the time. Obviously, your background, my background, we understand the horrors, the tragedy of an authoritarian government, of communism that literally destroys any sense of prosperity and goodness and freedom in any country. We see this all the time, whether it's in Nicaragua, in Venezuela, in Cuba, North Korea, obviously China. We obviously see how these authoritarian governments oppress their people, or they target their political opponents, which is an interesting segue to these situations that we're seeing here in the United States, where you see a President Biden targeting the political opponents. You see prosecutors who campaign on taking down Donald Trump. You see the FBI basically overreaching and abusing its power. And we're just all saying, wait a second, there's 100 red flags here. What's going to get done to stop this madness here in the U.S.?
Oh, absolutely. And that goes right into the breaking news right now, an exclusive that came from Stephen Miller's group, America First Legal, where new documents from the state committee reveal that the January 6th and the raid on Mar-a-Lago basically emboldened the DHS, and they secretly expanded their monitoring of Americans, and they're specifically targeting people that support President Trump. We could say we're in that group. I mean, we are very vocal. We are open. I wrote the stories with John Solomon in 2016 that led to the firing of Andy McCabe, who was, the second in command at the FBI, and exposing what was going on inside the FBI at that time, as well as our intelligence apparatus, and how far their reach was, even under the Obama administration. Are you scared, Mercy? I know a part of me, and you talked about, we picked up our kids today. My daughter was sick. I mean, I do mom things too. And I mean, I'm fighting for my country, but I'm fighting for my family. And I'm wondering, are we being spied on by the FBI? I mean, are we potential targets?
God only knows. I feel that, I do feel that we're targets. Absolutely. We've seen it firsthand with how the leftist media has targeted myself, my family, Matt, and CPAC. And really, they do everything they can to destroy this organization that stands staunchly against communism, stands staunchly for freedom. But even more so, what's very disturbing is that if you are in any way attached to or defending the MAGA movement, I do believe you're a target. Now, I will say, am I afraid? It's funny because I was listening to this short video on Fulton Sheen. He was a very famous priest, basically, who would talk about he talked about the 7 habits to be a godly man. It's actually a real short segment, and one of the things he says, do not be afraid. And he says, God wants you to, battle courageously. Like, you need to be courageous. And so I feel that even during these times when there are those that are being persecuted, there are those that the government's going after, we can't be afraid. Like, I know it's hard because of course we have children and everything else, but the reality is that somebody has to speak up, because it's going to start with, a lot of these, it starts with Trump himself. I mean, they're trying to take him down. They've already made him into this convicted felon. They're doing everything they can to stop his campaign and stop his presidency and his presidential candidacy. And yet they have failed time and time and time again. And the man still gets up every morning, still goes to the rally, still, then afterwards, if he needs to show up in court, goes to court. And where is Joe Biden? He's in a bunker in Camp David, taking 7 days off to go prepare for a presidential campaign, a presidential debate, where he's probably receiving so many liquids and fluids and all the restore.
And I'll say it, and drugs.
And maybe potentially performance enhancing drugs. Yes, this is where we are right now.
So we're having exactly. And I think that people can see definitely and imagine that he is taking something that will be able to help him, because we've seen him traveling across the globe, losing himself on stage, not speaking coherently. And it's sad, frankly. And a lot of people are saying, okay, it's elder abuse. People joke around about it. But this is the leader of the free world, Mercy. This is the leader of the free world. And we are stuck in a country right now that is upside down and divided. And most Americans who I speak to are worried about one major thing. And your husband and you have fought for this from the very beginning, and that is election integrity.
Yes.
And one of the things that they are most concerned about is, like, when they come up to me, hey, Sara, I am going to vote. I know everyone is going to the ballot box, but we don't trust the system anymore. How do you work around that?
It is, let me tell you, that is something that I think does keep us awake at night. I think there is definitely the chase the vote efforts, which we know some of the groups are doing, including the RNC. So they're getting people to register to vote. Then it's making sure that those people that register to vote actually vote before election day if there's early voting. But the reality is when you're dealing with the mail-in ballots, when you're dealing with dirty voter rolls, which you find in a number of these places, where a person is like attached to multiple addresses. It can get ugly in certain states, especially in certain cities like Philadelphia, Carson City in Nevada. So that means that when I see these polls that Trump is up +2 or Trump is up +3, I get nervous. I need Trump to be up by +6 or +7. And then there has to be a whole infrastructure in place to ensure that the votes are being counted correctly. So that means you make sure the person's in the room, the poll watcher's in the room, the person that's monitoring the counting is in the room. You have to make sure that you have all those people there. And then on top of that, you need to make sure you have a strong legal defense, because you're going to find that the Mark Eliases of the world, who basically spent his whole time 2020 trying to take down any sort of legal question on the campaign. And let's remember, the rules in 2020 because of COVID changed when you were getting closer to that election. That meant it went to mail-in voting without a real great process in place, where people were receiving 3 to 4 ballots, even more, at their homes. And they're like, wait a second here, why am I getting so many ballots? And once the ballots are sent in, if there's not a really strong verification system, like an e-verification system, and even like verifying the signatures, you end up in a bad situation and people are concerned.
Well, or what about the 49 states that are taking, and we saw that in the New York Post. That was a big headline. Everybody's talking about it. We've known it's been happening, but 49 states which are registering illegal migrants.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Yeah. Well, that's what's crazy, right? The person can go to the DMV, get their license, and then they're automatically registered to vote. And there's none of these safeguards in place to confirm their citizenship, which is why you have Senator Mike Lee, who's trying to push the SAVE Act and get that passed through the Senate. How can Democrats and Republicans not agree and not be in line to say, yes, you're right, it should be one vote per one citizen? This is pretty basic, but the Democrats have no desire to safeguard our elections. I hate the fact that we can't make up these, make sure we know who the winner is the day of, that we have to wait a week sometimes or 2 weeks sometimes to get a result. When you look at countries
How is it that France can do it? How is it that France?
So I asked, when I was in Spain and Matt and I spoke at the Vox convention, which it's their conservative group, and it was truly an amazing event. I asked them, I said, how do you all do the election process? And they're like, it is one day of voting. We have people from every party that show up and they monitor the they monitor people putting the ballots in, basically, and it's paper ballots, no voting machines. So that's the other piece of this. You get to the point that you're like, okay, if you're with paper ballots, one day of voting, and they take the day off, I believe, and then you have people in the room from different parties in these different precincts. That is a very simplified and clean system. The way we have it right now, it is like all over the place. And the mere fact is when you get to these cities, it gets ugly. Once they separate that ballot from the signature, let's say you do have to do some sort of, if there's questioning with the actual precinct, they can't put the two pieces back together. You've already separated them. So it's very problematic. And, for us at CPAC, our goal will be to monitor ballots. We're focused on reaching out to ensuring that Hispanics in these key states, these swing voters, come our way. They might not be linked to the Republican Party. They might not even be linked to the Democrat Party. But those Hispanics who are citizens here in the U.S., we believe we have an affinity with them, because CPAC has been traveling and has been working with so many Latin American counterparts, whether it's Argentina, whether it's Paraguay, whether it's Mexico, Brazil, El Salvador, which you and I went to that Bukele's inauguration. So we think that there is a huge opportunity to get these Hispanics to say, okay, maybe I don't really like the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, but I can connect with these conservatives who are standing up for my values.
Absolutely. And we're seeing a shift, too, in the Hispanic community, as well as Black Americans that are saying enough is enough with the Democratic Party. We want something different. We want to be able to focus on what matters to us most, which is families, education, economics. It's not about pandering anymore. Yeah. I want to go back to one thing, though. I want to make sure that we touch on this, because I think this is going to be vitally important. You talked about how right now, it's the Democrats, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, making it almost impossible, right, for us to do what we need to do, for the American people to move forward with any kind of I would say with any kind of certainty that there will be full election integrity come the election. But I'm very concerned about the fact too that we have people within the bureaucracy that seem to be owned by the Democrats. And we've talked about this being the deep state, how people operate. But the Brennan and Clapper Intel Group, they were the ones that were discussing the issue that came up in America First Legal. And they said, and this was in their own documentation, most of the domestic terrorism threat now comes from supporters of the former president.
Wow.
Supporters of the former president. And it's crazy. It says today's installment, this was written by Stephen Miller's group, said exposes how the Biden administration classifies someone as a person likely to commit a domestic violent extremist attack, particularly those that support President Trump, who are in the military or are religious. Under the Brennan Clapper Committee approach to national security, when all else fails, DHS should use being in the military or religious to profile people and tag them as having indicators of extremists and terrorism as a pretext to allow the DHS to spy on them. You and I are both.
Oh, we're there. We're so profiled. It's not even funny. I mean, we've gone from racial profiling.
Our parents went through this.
Yes, they've moved from racial profiling to religious profiling. I mean, how disgusting is that? How anti-American is that? How dangerous is that? We know, for example, that when the FBI had put out that notice for the agents to go to these infiltrate the masses, the traditional Latin masses of the Catholics, because they felt that those individuals were extreme. Why was that? Because they actually supported the overturning of Roe v. Wade, because they actually were pro-life. Those people are a threat to society. I mean, it is incredibly troubling. And then you take the pro-life activist, a 75, 76-year-old woman who literally protested in front of an abortion clinic, prayed in front of an abortion clinic. What did they do in D.C.? They're locking her up in jail. It is truly insanity. And the mere fact is you have Brennan and Clapper, both that have been the most despicable anti-Trump individuals in terms of the intelligence. They've been involved in everything from the Russian hoax to anything that has been of controversy towards President Trump. And yet they still have their national security clearance. I say strip their national security clearance. And I mean, they're the ones that I think should, at this point, seriously, they have no business being in the intelligence work because they cannot be trusted. They are literally the ones profiling and causing division within our society.
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to jump right quick to the debate. And I'm so glad you said that. That's where I wanted to get to. I think that their high-level security clearances should be pulled immediately. The first presidential debate is going to be on Thursday at 9 p.m., and it'll be moderated, like we said, by Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. Just to give you an idea of their biases, here's Dana Bash on CNN earlier this year.
Here's a question that I have, because it is, again, it seems like the Supreme Court is in a bubble, or perhaps it's some of the justices are in a bubble, and they're not dealing with, I mean, when they say, oh, Congress can do this, there are members of Congress, and we can go through the list, who are never going to do anything that would make life difficult for Donald Trump. So to think that the Congress is going to solve this, they barely can get a post office name these days.
It's true. I mean, and you can go down the list of Supreme Court decisions that kicked whatever issue over across the street over to Congress, whether it is Obamacare, which is something that the Democrats were very happy about when they did that, a little bit of a different kind of court. Voting rights, I think, is maybe the primary example of what you're saying before this. Look, unfortunately for America, the court isn't necessarily wrong that this is the way the framers wanted it to be. They wanted Congress, the people who are closest to their constituents, to be able to make the rules of the laws.
Unfortunately for America.
Unfortunately for America, Congress, which, by the way, these representatives and these senators are elected by the people, not appointed, not a lifetime appointment. like in the Supreme Court, like they should be writing the laws. They're the ones with the, that have the purse. And then you have the president, which executes the laws. And then you have the courts that interpret the laws. This is exactly how the framework set it up. So unfortunately, this is the best system that's been out there now for quite some time. I don't know, hundreds of years. And it's been effective. It's not perfect, but it's effective for the most part. What you don't want is a Supreme Court that becomes this authoritarian, pushing away and literally not even abiding by the Constitution. And that's when you see the activist judges. That's when you see the fact that they are not following the Constitution, but are literally, quote unquote, rewriting the laws, which is not their job. So, that's really disappointing. But again, I think when you're looking at Jake Tapper that has compared Trump to Adolf Hitler, they obviously didn't even let Caroline Leavitt, the Trump spokesperson today.
Oh, I have that clip right here. Let's look at it.
Well, first of all, it would take someone 5 minutes to Google Jake Tapper, Donald Trump, to see that Jake Tapper has consistently,
we're going to stop this interview if you're going to keep
President
attacking
Trump
my colleagues.
Adolf Hitler.
Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue
stating,
to attack my colleagues. I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf, I am willing to have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay.
Now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel. Caroline, thank you very much for your time. You are welcome to come back.
I mean, Casey Hunt just like
instead of Casey Hunt like kind of engaging, her. No. It was like, turn her off. We can't have her talk about, I don't know, actual comments that Jake Tapper has made of Donald Trump. We know that his comments have been completely biased, completely anti-Trump. And I was today on with Joe DeGeneva, who literally, he gave a very compelling argument as to like this whole debate is a setup for Donald Trump. They're going to try to make sure Joe Biden looks good. They're going to try to derail.
Why did Trump agree to it?
I don't know.
Why did President Trump agree?
I think Trump is just like this unafraid personality, and he likes going right into the middle of the most biased ring and, like boxing ring, and just like, he's like, bring it on. And so I get it, but I do think that he's at a disadvantage because you're going to have Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, and Biden all lined up together. It's all going to be, will you accept the election results? It's all going to be January 6th. It's all going to be abortion. Yeah, there'll be some mention about immigration and the economy, but then think about it. After that 1.5 hour debates, what does CNN do? They're going to basically say, we fact-checked Donald Trump. He lied, number one. Number two, then they're going to basically only take the sound bites of Donald Trump looking really bad. And then number three, they'll do the after political analysis, and it's going to be all about how Joe Biden won and Donald Trump lost. And so it's all so predictable. I write the script all by myself. There you go. You too. Like, we know how this is going to play out.
Yeah, this is what I don't understand, Mercy, because I've done this before. I was talking to the producers before we came on, and I said, this happened to me. I remember being in Afghanistan at one of my many trips there, and I had asked Stanley McChrystal, it was kind of a last minute request, like, hey, can I do a one-on-one with you? Because I'd like, as part of my package for the Washington Times. And McChrystal was like, oh, I would have loved to have done an interview with you, but I promised. It was Rolling Stone magazine. I can't remember the name of the author, but it was what got him fired. And he said, I promised an exclusive to this guy from Rolling Stone. And I was thinking to myself, Rolling Stone is not going to be objective. Like, why are you giving them?
Well, that's bad. In my opinion, that's really bad staffing. Like, anyone who would wanted to make sure the general gets a good interview would have been like, no, dude, you're not going to do the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, you're not going to do it.
Things about you.
So this is why, I mean, I know President Trump can fight the good fight. I know he's going to go out there and throw punches. But look, CNN is lucky to have him. They have absolutely no ratings whatsoever. The only people that watch CNN are the people that are in like an airport and they accidentally see it. And then they're disgusted by the fact that they saw it. Because it's usually just like, it's the worst news that you're going to possibly get from anyone. It's the most
anti-Trump news. Right. They barely put on any sort of MAGA surrogates, or just talk about afraid. They're afraid to include hardly anyone who supports Trump. It's very rare that you find that.
Well, I certainly hope he gets someone else, right? I mean, he goes
I think they
right
have the
away.
ABC one, but it's
right
like,
after.
But it doesn't matter. Like, here's the deal. let's say we get through this and then it may give Biden a bump, 1 or 2 points. I mean, in the rate everybody's feeling, which is chaotic, uncertain, financially insecure, like you feel like the world is burning up around us. There's so much instability. And then you look at a president who is literally more focused about the LGBTQ agenda and gender ideology than they are about what they need to be doing to ensure that Americans can, basically ensure that they have enough money in their pockets. Like, come on. And their whole strategy has just been like abortion and Trump is a dictator. I just don't think it's going to cut it. I just don't.
I don't either. And you were amazing in the White House. And, when you worked with President Trump, we see right now Tyler Cherry, this new White House appointee, completely vehemently anti-Israel, anti-American, very provocative pictures of him. Big, LGBTQ, XYZ guy, but hates almost anything. He says he adores. He also adores anti-Semites. I mean, this is the kind of guy that they are hiring as an associate communications director at the White House. Why do you think they feel so okay with hiring staff like this? And let me play that clip for you. This is Vice President Kamala Harris. A lot of people thought this wasn't even real when it came out, meeting with the Queer Eye guys at the White House. With everything that's going on at the border, Mercy, this is what she does.
Exactly.
Hi. Can we talk on it? Yes. Welcome today, everyone, to the White House. I'd like to briefly answer some questions. Go ahead, I'm ready.
JVN.
Oh, yes.
Is it true that is all your natural hair?
Yes, I can confirm that this is not a wig.
Follow-up question. Do you use your own products?
I do use JVN hair, actually exclusively for over 4 years.
I got to give him credit. He has better hair than I do, Sarah. But
he does better than mine too.
I was really looking at his hair going, goodness, whatever products he's using, I should adopt. Here, this is what's so disturbing, right? It's all about, it is such an obsession with trying to be cool and trendy and in. And so and then they've embraced this agenda, the LGBTQ agenda, to such an extreme. It's not even about you go live your private life, do what you want to do. No. It is to shove it, put it in your face all the time, make you feel uncomfortable, have your children watch it. And it's gross. And quite frankly, there is no talk about immigration. There is no talk about, other than giving amnesty, right, to the spouses of, citizens. It's not about, no one feels like they're bringing the real people in, if that makes sense.
It does. Why didn't they bring Jocelyn Nungare's parents in?
Yeah.
Why not the 12-year-old who was brutally raped and murdered? I think about her little face and I think about that moment for her. And these two men, this isn't an aberration. These men traveled from Venezuela. Imagine how many people they murdered along the way. I don't believe this was their first rodeo. They did this together.
And apparently, they were they didn't find any problems. Well, of course they don't find problems because you can't go and get the documentations from Venezuela. Right. At the end of the day, a lot of these people, we've seen it at the border. They destroy their passports before walking through the border. It is disgusting. And so the mere fact is we do not know who's coming into this country. Right. We know that they're not properly being vetted. We know that terrorists have been arrested here that came through the southern border. We can't even count, figure out who else is in here that's literally a terrorist threat. You've got the Chinese nationals that are also coming into the United States. We are literally in a situation where I believe we're in the highest threat possible of having another terrorist attack on our soils and the continuation of criminal activities by these illegal aliens. And the Biden administration is more worried about men wearing dresses, especially if they're sequenced dresses and that have better hair than we do.
You mentioned it yourself. We know that there's been over 360 people with known terrorist ties apprehended by DHS. Those people are what we know about. We don't know about all the people that came in that were the known gotaways that are blended into our system. And furthermore, the governments that we're dealing with don't want to cooperate with us.
Oh, gosh, no.
So what do we do? What do we do under a Trump administration?
Look, I do think that at this point that it's such an urgency to shut down that border, to make sure we have enough Border Patrol agents in place, making sure we have the National Guard from all these different states, even more so, just making sure you have the people, right? You need the personnel in addition to the technology to make sure you're catching these gotaways. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues that you're talking about, since the Biden administration has allowed for, I think it's close to 2 million people since his administration who are gotaways into the United States. And then you do have to start with the criminals, start with the deportation of the criminals. This notice to appear document is a bunch of BS because they're not showing up, or they cut their ankle monitors. This is so telling as to where we are as a country. And quite frankly, unless we really put our foot down and say, we have to change the way we do business here, we have to make sure that the drug cartels and the sex traffickers, that they know that they're not in charge and that we're going to get them and make sure that they're put in jail. I think that's a really critical step. You got to make these drug traffickers into and basically, assign them as terrorist organizations. That's what they should be assigned as, because they are getting away with murdering vulnerable children and women, and as well as bringing in fentanyl and so many drugs into the United States that are killing innocent people throughout our whole entire country. I'll give you an example. One of my daughters, she's getting certified as an emergency medical training. And she told me, she said, it's just tragic. One fentanyl overdose after the other coming into the emergency room. Sara, this is what we're dealing with. And you've got to get a handle on the border. That is like step one in helping to at least have some normalcy in this country and get a sense to know who's here in America.
Well, I think absolutely. I think it's the number one issue, because if we lose our sovereignty, if we lose our border the way we've already lost it, we could potentially lose our nation.
Yes.
And we are seeing the fabric of our nation being just ripped apart. And China, you and I were both, like you said, in El Salvador, we were meeting with people. There were a lot of different dignitaries. We talked to many people, also, people that are involved in intelligence and in other aspects of foreign policy. And one of the big concerns is our adversaries. Our adversaries are watching what's happening at our border. You brought it up. I mean, the Chinese that are coming into this country is unlike anything we've ever seen in our past. And the proxy war that they're waging against us with fentanyl is definitely a war that is targeting future generations. Your daughter is seeing an example. One of the numbers we don't have is the number of people that are surviving because they have had fentanyl. Now they have brain damage. They have medical issues for the rest of their life. They've been brought back 2 or 3 times with Narcan. And we don't have those numbers. How many people in the United States have survived this? And what is that going to cost us in the future? Mercy, I just think November cannot come fast enough. What do we need to do? How can we support CPAC? How can we support, and by the way, bring up, because we're going to be together in July with the CPAC's nonprofit division working to fight anti-human trafficking. It is a big project. I'm excited.
International Summit for combating human trafficking on Capitol Hill with several members of Congress and the activists involved in this area. It's an issue that you, Sara, that us at CPAC have really prioritized, because if we can't save our children, then why are we doing the work that we're doing, quite frankly, and saving these children's innocence? And we've heard the tragic stories time and time again. And then CPAC will be very involved politically to get Donald Trump elected. So we would love the support. Go to cpac.org, learn more about what we're doing there for us. And Sara, I actually owe you a call, because we have launched CPAC Unidos. This is our effort to really bring home the Hispanic voters. I know that President Bukele in his inauguration talked about the diaspora, right, in America.
That's right.
I thought, what greater organization than CPAC to connect what's happening abroad in Latin America, to say, look, we care about what's happening in your countries. We want to make sure there's U.S. involvement in Latin America, not Chinese involvement, and then making sure that when your countries are prospering, also America is prospering. And those, I think, are very important messages that we're going to be working on in critical states like Arizona and Nevada and even Virginia. We're going to play here hard, because I got to tell you, I think in talking with the Trump campaign, I think that there's opportunities here that we really need to invest in.
I absolutely agree with you. I'd love to be a part of it. And I think Virginia is definitely an area you should focus on. I know that from talking to people that are part of that diaspora that live in Virginia, that would be more than happy to welcome CPAC into their communities and to be a part of promoting conservative values in their Latin American communities. So I'm there with you, Mercy. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I'm so grateful that you made it. And I can't wait to have you back on.
I know, and I can't wait to see you in person, which I'm sure will be in the next big CPAC we have.
Yep. Or next month in DC.
Oh, that's right. In DC, we've got our summit going on. Thank you, Sarah.
You got it. Hey, folks, are you concerned about the endless flood of illegal immigration at the southern border? How about the $1 trillion being added to the national debt every 100 days? Yikes. It's no wonder thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are learning how to protect and diversify their retirement savings with precious metals. That's why I've partnered with the top-rated company, Goldco. Listen to this current offer. Get a free 2024 wealth protection kit and learn how to possibly get $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of the show while supplies last. Look, I tell you to diversify all the time. It's the most important way to protect you and your family. Protect your family's financial future and freedom. Get started today at SaraLikesGold.com or 855-823-GOLD. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver at SaraLikesGold.com or 855-823-4653. That's Sarah, SaraLikesGold.com, or call 855-823-GOLD. Thank you so much, Mercy, for being on the Sarah Carter Show. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, give us a like and a follow and send us to a friend if you like the show. Please make sure you subscribe to the Sarah Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. We really appreciate it. Follow me on Truth at Sarah Carter Official, on X at Sarah Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. Remember, here at the Sarah Carter Show, we are taking the story back. God bless you, God bless our nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.